Hey, welcome to the Ruckus Feature Explainer series. I'm Terry Henry. Today we're going to talk about configuration backup and restore in Virtual Smartzone for ICX switches. So in the past few episodes, we've talked about how to add ICX switches to Virtual Smartzone, how to automatically put them in a group, how to upgrade the firmware on the switches, and this time we're going to talk about configuration backup and restore. So let's have a look at that. So here we are in the Smartzone dashboard. I've got 3 switches added. And so I'm going to drop over to the switches on the left menu. We have 3 switches in my switch group. And they're all, in good shape. I can see the port status, uptime, 0 alarms on them, etc. So down in the lower here, we see the backup and restore tab. And this is going to show me backup and restores for the entire group, right? So here we see my different switches, lab switch 1, lab core, my 7150 just doesn't have a host name on it, the status of those, if there's been a restore, and then manually or scheduled, right? So when you first add a switch into Smartzone, it's going to do a scheduled backup as soon as you add it. It's also going to do a scheduled backup every day. So every day at the same time, it's going to run a scheduled backup, or you could do a manual backup. So let me go back up here and we'll choose a switch. So we'll choose lab switch 1. And so under lab switch 1 now, I have 2 different backups, a manual and a scheduled here, right? So it'll give you the timestamp, when it happened, the status of them, etc. So if we want to do a backup now, right, I highlight the switch, or I can highlight all the switches for that matter, go to More, and then say Config Backup. So are you sure you want to back those up? Yes. So it triggered successfully, right? And now it takes a few minutes, right? So it'll go through. You see that the 3 of these are in progress, right? So those will take not long, not nearly as long as a firmware upgrade, maybe a minute or so before those are ready to go. In the meantime, let me drop back over to switch group. We'll look at lab switch 1 again, and I do have multiple backups in here, right? So we see the in progress one, we see a couple of successes. So under here, I can highlight one of these, for example, and I can say config view. So I can view the configuration. I could say config download, and you'll see it download as a text file right here, right? And it'll open that text file in whatever application you want, or just save the file, right? So in my case, you can't see this, but it opened in Word, so you could, keep that as a backup on your local machine. You could delete it. We could do a config restore as well. So if something's gone wrong with your machine, someone's made an unauthorized change, you could do a config restore here, and I could click on that. The other really cool thing we can do is you can do a config diff. So I'm going to highlight 2 of these. Do a config diff here, and then in config diff, it's showing me, side by side, here's the differences, right? So this area that's in a peach color is what's different from here to this device, right? So we can see that, a VLAN was added, some changes to the VLAN, a host name was added, which don't exist in this side. So it'll show you side by side those 2 switches. I could do a config diff here between 2 totally different switches. So they don't have to be the same switch, right? So those are both 7150 compact, excuse me, but they are not the same switch. So you can highlight the differences between those. Completely different configuration, but that's okay. So in a lot of cases, all of your wiring closet switches will have a very similar configuration, except, the IP address maybe the the VLAN port configuration, but you can see that side by side quite quickly. So kind of a nice feature. And then if we wanted to restore a configuration, I could choose a switch here. We will go to lab switch 1, and we'll just choose the schedule one. That was the original, and we'll say config restore. So it says, do you really want to restore this backup? We'll say yes. It's triggered successfully, and then it's going to reboot the switch, right? Because it's going to load that into the startup config and then reload the device. So that's obviously going to take a few minutes to complete, but that's the basics of the feature. Though you could back up the configuration either on a scheduled basis or immediately. You can config diff between two different switches or two different configurations on the same switch, and you can restore a configuration very easily just by highlighting it and choosing restore. So that's it. Simple and effective new feature in Smartzone. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time. Take care.